Good evening, sir.
Sir,
Good evening, good evening. I'm sorry, I'm a bit hassled. There is a friend of mine, and his son is quite uh, severely schizophrenic, and he wanted to go to the US, and he likes to talk only to me for some strange reason. And I told him it's better you don't go, you won't have family support. And I also told this friend of mine that please don't send him abroad, because if you do, then you're going to have a problem on hand. Despite my telling him not to send, he sent him, and within 2 days, the problems have started. And since for some strange reason this chap likes to talk only to me, he's been.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, good evening. Welcome back.
Yeah, sir.
So this has been happening since the morning, and so that's the way it is. Sometimes life can be a bit of a problem.
What happened, sir? Is he doing well?
He's not.
Okay.
Hmm. He's
Health
been
issues?
schizophrenia. It's a mental health issue where usually they hear voices, imaginary voices. Sometimes you associate somebody saying something to you with uh, them insulting you or something like that. So what he has been doing is that one, he has been calling me, and I can't possibly not take his call because I know he's abroad and he's alone. My wife, however, is getting a little put off. She says this is very disturbing. And I said, there is no one, you're not hearing anything, you're just making these things up. Your mind is making these things up, just ignore them. So he sent me some 14 WhatsApp recordings, each of which lasted anywhere between 14 to 20 minutes. And he says, listen to them very, very carefully. You'll hear the voices. So I've been listening to them very, very carefully. The only thing I hear is silence. Obviously, so I told his dad, why did you send him? Now that boy believes that the people who he's living with, rooming with, They are out to sabotage. And can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Not clearly, sir.
Yeah.
No, something has happened. So, where is the audio? No.
What he is doing, sir, now?
Hello, sir, you're there?
Sir, you are not audible.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, now.
Now, sir.
Now or no, Rachna?
Now it's audible, sir.
Okay, fine.
Uh, sir, what he is doing now, sir?
Hmm?
The disabled person.
He's not disabled, he's mentally ill. So
Yeah, it's a disorder, no?
it's a disorder. He's not disabled, he has a disorder.
Okay, disorder. Yeah, mental
Hmm.
disorder.
Yeah, he's going on sending me messages, calling me, and all kinds of things. And that too, when I'm kind of caught up in doing work. So I'm a little put off by this whole thing. But that's okay. It's his parents' fault. I told them not to send him abroad. They did. And now this is what is happening. Okay, we wasted quite a bit of time. Let's get on with it. We are talking about now. If you remember yesterday, I had discussed the Renaissance with you, and I told you about how scholars from um Hellenistic Greece, uh, which is a degenerate form of Greece, but scholars were there. They were an underground movement. The scholars in Hellenistic Greece, they were an underground movement, but they came overground and went to the Italian principalities with all the knowledge that they had, knowledge of the ancient period. And I told you this was facilitated by the war with the Ottoman Turks, which was crusades versus jihad. Then I told you, I hope you remember all these.
Yes, sir. Up to Luther.
Mm, 1 second. So then I told you, let's not go to Luther right now. How the setting up of universities for theological studies culminated in them becoming available to these scholars and others as well. Okay, so Christianity had set up universities to study uh, the Bible and various interpretations of it. But these institutions came in handy to those people who were carrying the old knowledge of Greece. Okay, so these sort of became centers of education, and they became centers of education not just of the theological kind, but also of the uh, other kind, which is, I don't want to put a label on it because that will kind of, it can project a false picture. So we just say non-theological studies. Okay, that's what happened. Uh, this is all due to the Renaissance that happened in the Italian principalities. Okay, and then I said the other thing which is equally or perhaps more important is the Reformation under Martin Luther and the birth of the Protestant ethic. As Max Weber calls it, the Protestant ethic, that you can protest against authority. You don't have to accept authorities. And historically, I told you, feudalism was becoming weak and lost its power to generate wealth, and even the church, the Roman church, let's say, lost quite a bit of its power uh, due to the Reformation, due to the Renaissance and the Reformation. Right? So this is the setting. this is the setting in which we have the whole birth of, we are talking about the birth of the scientific method in the modern period. Now, obviously, if you see the history of Europe, any of the developments that you see, are those which are gradual, okay, and nothing is big bang, okay, so there are no sudden changes in Europe. Everything that happens gradually, and it happens over a period of time. Okay, so even though the scientific method was born, it's not as if people embraced it immediately. I had once told you the story of Galileo and how the church threatened to kill him because he even used a telescope to show the people that the earth was not the center of the universe, that the earth was not flat. It was the sun which is the center of the universe, and that the earth was some kind of an ellipse. Okay, and he almost lost his life. He pleaded guilty of being under the influence of Satan and saved himself. Okay, so the early scientists, if you want to call them that, and mathematicians like Copernicus and Kepler, all of them faced a number of problems, usually physical threats from the church. Despite its weakened authority, it still wielded enough authority to actually weaken, to threaten the early proponents of the scientific method. Okay, but some of them were successful, and when we talk about the successful, we talk about this is an anonymous group because they didn't want to be identified. Otherwise, they thought they will get into trouble with the church. So an anonymous group of scholars of science, at that time, science and philosophy are still interchangeable. So I'll put philosophy also. Secretly managed to create the resolutive compositive method. They managed to do this. And by creating the resolutive compositive method, they shattered the claim of the church that what you did not create cannot be understood by you. They shattered that particular idea. The church said, have faith. Don't use your reason. If you have faith, then God will reveal knowledge to you. All these things, if you see, they have been shattered, and this new resolutive compositive method came, and it came from the University of Padua, or they were simply called Paduans. They didn't disclose their individual identities. Why is this here? Let's remove this also. So, what is the resolutive compositive method, and how was it used? Now you'll have to see that despite the church still trying to wield its power, there were new developments in technology and knowledge taking place. Galileo managed to create a telescope. Similarly, this was also the time when somebody, we don't know who did it, when somebody created a clock, A clock is something that shows time. I don't have to tell you that. Okay, this is a time when somebody created a clock. Till then, people were first looking at the position. If you look at the earliest ways of looking at time, then they talked in terms of events that happened at a particular time. They'd say, this was from that time when such and such an event occurred. That's how people refer to time. That is in the very, very primitive stages of the human um, uh, civilization. But later on, you do find the invention of sundials, which told the time, at least during the day, depending upon the position of the sun and the shadow of a needle-like structure that was put in the middle of the dial, depending on where the shadow was falling, people were able to tell the time of the day. In the night, people looked at the stars and they could tell the time. And this actually is not a very old thing. I remember uh, when I was pretty young, by that I mean I was small, uh, we used to sleep on the terrace of the house, the roof of the house, if you want, uh, in the summers, because it used to be cool in those days. There were a lot of open spaces, no big buildings. It used to start cooling down by about 5 o'clock. And in the night, it used to become pretty cool, so cool that if we were sleeping in an open place, then we had to cover ourselves with something because it was cold enough to cover yourself. And my dad, he could tell the time by looking at the Great Bear constellation. Okay, by looking at where the Great Bear constellation, which in Indian astronomy is called the Saptarishi Mandalam. Saptarishi Mandalam, it is called in the Indian astronomical system. Uh, the Westerners call it the Great Bear constellation. My father used to tell time according to that. And if you saw the watch, he was not off by more than 5 or 6 minutes. He could. So that was an art that was there even till my father's generation. Uh, so that's how people told time in the night. Later on, other devices were created, like, for example, uh, the sand clock, right? So that also told time. It was a certain kind of sand that was poured into something which had a constriction in the middle, and it took a certain amount of time for that sand from the top to get into the bottom. So they were being used, but when the time that we are talking about, we have the intervention of a proper clock. And please remember, not intervention. Did I say intervention of a proper clock? Sorry. It is invention of a proper clock. Okay. Now, when anything new is invented, usually it is big. Okay. Uh, the best examples are computers. I must have told you this because I have this habit of repeating examples. If you go to the Birla Science Museum on Kala Pahad, no, not Kala Pahad. The Birla Mandir is on Kala Pahad. This is on the Naubat Pahad. If you go on to that, into that, you'll find one computer donated by the Usmania University uh, to that museum. And this was made in the 60s. Now, the size of the computer was the size of the room that I'm sitting in. And it had this speed of, how shall we put it, a snail, and it had the memory of an ant, though it was the size of 2 elephants. All discoveries begin like that. This is an IBM computer. Okay. And you find these computers have shrunk slowly over a period of time. Now they have come into your cell phones. Your cell phones are no longer just phones. They should be called multi-purpose devices. Quite a few of you must be using a phone to watch this lecture. So as time progresses, things become compact, smaller. That is how a clock, which was once a very big thing, started becoming smaller and smaller. And from being a mechanical thing, it went on to become an electrical thing. Now nobody wears wristwatches. Even when it became a small wristwatch, people had to key it up every day. Every morning, I remember my first watch, which my dad got for me when I just got into the 8th class. It was called HMT Chelam. That was a model. Uh, and you had to stand in line to buy it. Okay, and so you would see, that you had to wind up the key, otherwise it would stop. But now you have those quartz watches which run on batteries, very small batteries. And some of the expensive watches actually use the electricity in your body to charge themselves. So we've reached that stage. Similarly, that is the case with the clock. Now, the Paduans used the clock to debunk the theory that you cannot understand what you did not create. This was the stand of the church. It advanced this particular theory, which said that if you didn't create something, you can't understand it. So you didn't create the world, so don't try to understand it. Now the Paduans wanted to debunk this theory. So they used the clock. Now the clocks of that time were pretty big. Now when you look at and to debunk that theory, they use the resolutive composite method. So what did this involve? First and foremost is that the clock represented an unintelligible complex. Okay, it represented an unintelligible complex. What is unintelligible? Something that eludes your intelligence and therefore you can't understand. What is a complex? A complex is not something that is made of only one thing. Okay? A complex has many parts or components in it. So, the clock originally, to the Paduans, it represented an unintelligible complex. Okay, so they said, can we understand it? And so they decided to give it a try. And what did they do? They did what a child does. Have you ever given a toy to a child? Any of you? Or have you ever seen a child being given a toy?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Broken into multiple pieces.
What? What
They will
pieces?
break any toy into.
They'll
They'll
break
break
it.
any toy into.
Ah, I got it. They'll break it into multiple pieces. That's Rachna. Was that?
No, sir.
Amulya, sir.
That was Amulya. Oh, Amulya.
Yes, sir.
You were saying something, Padma?
No, sir. I just said yes.
What did you observe when they are given something?
They think it is a real one.
They think it's the real one?
They
Ah.
see it carefully, try to observe it
Try to observe it, yes.
from
Or
all the sides or keep in their mouth and try to see what it is.
keep in the mouth. Why?
Yeah.
Can
I don't know.
can no. There's a reason behind it.
Yeah, one.
Mm.
Sir, they understand
Doctor.
anything through senses.
Huh.
So
They'll
to
They have itchy sensation.
what sensation?
Itchy.
Itching
Itching.
sensation. No.
Sir, between the certain age,
Hmm.
with the tongue, if I with the tongue, they observe everything. I think
No.
I thought I read somewhere.
It's not the tongue. It's the lips.
Sir, first that they don't know what
Okay.
to eat and what to not eat. So everything they will
No, no.
intake.
They don't eat toys. Come on. Okay. Please remember one thing. The first senses that develop most in a human being are to be found in the lips. Okay? So, as soon as you give something to a baby or not very well, not somebody who hasn't grown too much, the first thing they'll do is put it to their lips. They do that because by touching them to the lips, they get to understand the texture of what they are looking at, okay, or what they have with them, right? They get to understand the texture. Does anybody know what the word text means? T-E-X-T? Hmm? Nobody knows what
Is a written
Eh,
word.
ribbon,
Written
written.
word. Text
Written
means.
word is a text. What were you saying, madam? Rachna ji?
I do the same.
Hmm.
In
Well,
computer, one of the option upside text.
you can see it on my screen. By the way, the word
Yeah.
you can you get you should understand that the word text, which is the basis for texture, it, it is the basis. You should understand that it is the basis for texture and textiles. Okay. And so what is textiles?
Cloth.
Sorry,
Cloth.
cloth. Okay, acceptable. You were saying something, ma'am?
Yes, sir. Clothes made in factory by stitching, knitting, by any method.
Hmm. Okay. See, text in Greek basically means to weave. W-E-A-V-E. To weave is to, to indulge in the activity of creating text. So it is the weaving that creates a textile, which is a cloth. Okay. And it is the material used and the skill in weaving that determine the texture. Cotton is extremely soft. Linen is even softer. That is the texture. All of that comes from text, which is to weave. Okay. And it is used in the case of writing because while you're texting, you're weaving sentences with letters in the alphabet. First level of this process of weaving a written text is putting syllables together. The second level is putting, uh, what do you say? It's putting letters together to form a word. The third level is putting words together to form sentences. The fourth level is putting sentences together to express an idea. Okay, that is how the word text comes into being. So we have that inborn urge, the innate urge. How many people have left? Hmm. Huh. So we have that innate urge to know, to basically know how things are right from when we are children. And as a child reaches, say, an age of 5, the mouth is no longer his primary thing. Okay? Because other senses have developed equally now. Okay? Initially, the lips are the ones that they have the highest concentration of blood vessels. And that is the reason why that sense is the one that works most. And that's why people put everything to their mouth. And by doing that, I'm having to do this all the time. So when you see an older child, if you give them a toy, like Madam Amulya said, they break it. Why do they break it? Because they want to know how that toy works. Okay? It is not something that they do consciously. It's just that inborn feeling. There's a good word for that in Sanskrit. That word is jijnasa, Jijnyasa, but pronounced jijnasa, not jijnyasa, jijnasa. Okay, everybody has jijnasa in them. The levels of it may vary. So when you give something to someone who is of 5 years of age, he'll try to break open the toy to see what is inside. And as you grow older, you give people things like Meccano we used to have when we were kids. But before that, for even smaller people, we had a set of toys called, a set of things called fixo bricks, which is, you have to put these things together by, they have this holes, and they also have things that jut out. So you put them together like you're building something. So you use your imagination with these things to build various things. The same thing with Meccano. There you get mechanical parts. That is by the time you're 9 or 10. And you have to build something, whatever you want. There are things in front of you. It's your imagination that makes you build what you want. Okay. I don't know if those kind of toys are available now. I don't think they are. So that is that primeval, primordial urge in the human being to know things that makes him first break it. So when you say the clock represented an unintelligible complex, you are then saying that it is a combination of parts that have been put together and you don't know how it works. So what did they do? Now these are obviously grown up men, men of science and philosophy. And so they're not going to break it like a child does. But ultimately, the activity that they do is exactly what a child does. But it is a more dignified way of putting things. They disassemble the clock into its constituent parts till they become rock bottom simples. Okay, which means they open it up, the clock. They opened it up till the parts could no longer be opened anymore. So that's what is a rock bottom simple. It's a complex because it is all these things put together, but each part in itself is a simple, right? Each part in itself is a simple. So when you disassemble a clock, what have you done? You have broken it down into its different components like needles, dial, wheels, pulleys, threads. All these things have been put together to create the clock. So what did you do? You disassembled all these. You disassembled all these things. And what do you have in front of you? All these individual parts. If you try to break them, then you're breaking the part. That's why it's called a rock bottom. Rock bottom means you can't go below that anymore. Okay, so you disassemble something to the extent that you can without destroying the part. You disassemble to the minutest possible detail without destroying the parts. Okay, so this bit is called resolution. Resolution as in resolve. Okay, did you resolve this problem? Did you find a resolution to your problem? If you look at glasses, do you say, how is the resolution of this glass? If it is allowing for the maximum possible penetration of light and giving you a clear picture, then you say the resolution of this glass is very, very good, right? So resolution is the bit that refers to the process of disassembling the clock to its rock bottom simples. As you're disassembling, you make notes. Okay, this was removed from so and so place. This was removed from so and so place. So you also keep you don't just pull things together out. No, you maintain a record of how you have disassembled it. Why do you have to do that? Because you have to reassemble it. Okay, so once you have recorded how you have disassembled all these parts, which is the resolution bit, the next thing why is it a reassembly? It's a reassembly because you already had this thing in front of you in its assembled form, which you have disassembled. Now what are you doing? Now you're referring to how you said this part came from here, this part came from here. You take all those things into consideration, and what do? You say, I am reassembling it. Okay, so you take recourse to reassembly. So you say, okay, this pulley goes here, this pulley goes here, and this thread connects these two pulleys. Okay, and then we have this needle here that is connected to these two pulleys by this thread. Okay, so you start putting them back together. When you put all these simples back together, what do you have? You now have an intelligible complex. The simples have once again become that complex. But the difference is that you don't have the unintelligible complex in front of you. What you have in front of you is the intelligible complex, the complex that you now understand. So how do you understand this complex? You understand this complex as how a key winds up a spring and how the spring is calibrated to run at a certain, to unwind at a certain speed that coincides with time. Then you look at the number of wheels that are there and how they act in conjunction with the spring that has been wound up. And then you look at the pulleys that are there, which are facilitating the unwinding through the usage of threads. And then you look at the dial and the needles that actually show the time. So, what is this? This is the reassembly. I forgot to put it here. Let me put it here. This is composition. If the disassembly, pulling things apart, is resolution, putting things back together, reassembly, is the composition. In school, are you asked to write compositions?
Yes, sir. Many
Yes,
times.
sir.
Yes, sir.
What are you asked to do? You're given a subject,
Writing.
right?
Yeah, writing many times.
Not writing.
Single answer.
That is an imposition, not a
Uh,
composition.
Essay writing, sir. Any favorite festival or anything like that?
Yeah, they'll give you some topic,
Yeah.
and they'll ask you to write, right? And it's called a composition. Why is it called a composition?
Putting all the ideas together to make a text.
Is it just the ideas? Is it just the ideas?
Yeah, ideas in the sense, what do we know about that topic?
Yeah,
We do
so
write that.
in Hans, so what are you putting together? What are you putting together?
The words,
Right,
the text.
correct. The words. Composition is called a composition because you express your ideas through the medium of words by stringing them in an appropriate manner. You write a composition, okay? You write a composition by stringing words together. And the best kind of writing is that which expresses a person's ideas in the most appropriate manner through the usage of the most appropriate words and in the best form of stringing them. So if you write it very well, it is very interesting. It's the same with music. People say Mozart composed music. Okay. What is composition in music? Composition in music is the ability to put put compatible notes together. Okay. When you put notes that are compatible, then they sound melodious. If you put different notes that are incompatible with each other, then you create cacophony. You just create sound without melody. It might even be irritating. Okay. So today there is an expression, it's been there for a long time, but nowadays people use this particular expression. So what is songwriting?
Writing the lyrics of the song.
So what is a song?
Composition of lyrics.
No.
Make something at the end.
Lyric is a part of the song. Songwriting involves
Different words joining together to make.
no. The first and foremost, songwriting involves writing down notations of music. You'll always see there'll be those lines, there'll be dots on lines which are connected like this, symbols. So what you write first and foremost is the musical notes. You write them down. We didn't do this in India, but this is a tradition that is there in the West. In India, just like you recited everything from memory, you also, in your own memory, you created these musical notes, you strung them out and sang them out. And in Indian music, the most prominent thing is the voice and the lyric. The rest of the instruments are accompaniments. They are accompaniments. So the beauty of Indian music is you can call people and you needn't practice with them before. You will have to say, so and so Kriti, Tyagaraja Kriti, Aditalam, That is a rhythm. Okay, so you give these kind of instructions and everybody knows what to play, and they play it without having practiced it together. That is the beauty of Indian music. The beauty of Western music is that they first write things down and they write complex orchestral arrangements, which means you write down at what time which instrument comes in. Most of the early Western music was instrumental. So the instruments have a very, very significant part compared to Indian music. And you'll have to mentally imagine which instrument will come in at what time and what notes will it play. Okay, and then you add the vocals, which are also lyrical. What is the lyrical bit? The lyric is metered. It's not arbitrarily writing words. You have to write it to a meter. Okay, and that meter should fit in with the musical notes that have been created. It has to sit in with that. So you compose that piece of music. So in Western music, all instruments don't play all the time. Even in modern forms, sometimes one instrument is played for a brief while and it goes away. And in the most modern forms of Western music, the most important instrument nowadays has become the keyboard, because it also can synthesize different sounds. So it's called the synthesizer. But otherwise, the most important instrument was the guitar. The guitar has an advantage over other stringed instruments because it has 6 strings, and the number of notes that you can produce on 6 strings, and if there are more number of frets are those brass pieces, okay, which are embedded into the wood. If you have many of them and you have 6 strings, then you can produce greater number of notes. And this man called Hank Marvin basically started playing what are called today called guitar solos, where you have a single note playing. The guitar solo doesn't mean that only the guitar is being played. No, it becomes a lead instrument. It's lead guitar actually. So there are lead guitar pieces, and some guitarists excel at it. My favorite is David Gilmour. He's one of the best guitarists I've heard. Not technically the best, but he creates these lead solos which you can sing, you can hum, you can remember the whole tune and hum. Then there are these technical geniuses like Yngwie Malmsteen who will play a guitar blistering pace blistering pace. The number of notes that he can fit in to one bar is amazing. But he's a technical genius, but there's no melody in what he does. That's why I don't like his style of guitaring. The one who has the best possible compromise is a guitarist called Dave Kilminster, whom I have managed to befriend. That is because of his humility and his niceness. I have befriended him on Twitter. I ask him questions and he replies. So he's right now my favorite guitarist. But my favorite music composer is Roger Waters. He's an amazing songwriter. He can write great music. He can write great lyrics. He can sing them too. Anyway, so this is the process of reassembly is composition. Putting things together, putting things back together. So what do you have? You have the resolutive compositive method that makes you understand what you originally did not understand. It makes you understand that which you did not originally understand. And in doing so, it debunks the idea that you cannot understand what you did not create. It debunks this idea. So now you know how you can understand the world. You might not have understood the world. You might not have created the world, but there's certainly no way you cannot understand it. Maybe not fully, but you can understand the world. And it all started with understanding nature and natural phenomena. What terrible spellings. Natural phenomena. These days, despite meteorology, not meteorology, meteorology, that which deals with weather, still not being a proper science, you can explain the lack of rainfall. You'll say in the Pacific Ocean, you have the phenomenon called El Nino. And if you have the El Nino effect, then it sucks out the moisture and therefore the monsoons don't happen. But if you have the La Nina, If you have the La Nina phenomenon, then you have a lot of moisture and you have a very good monsoon. Winds also blow. They bring the rain-bearing clouds towards our country and we have rains. And if you have a very strong summer, the water from the ocean evaporates, and that in conjunction with La Nina can bring about a lot of rain. So you have these explanations today. So the first kind of science that was created is called natural science. Please do not confuse natural science with biology. In school, I don't know how it is now. In our time, physical sciences were physics and chemistry. Natural sciences were botany and zoology or biology. Now we call them biological sciences and physical sciences. But a natural science is that which deals with nature and natural phenomena, of which the physical sciences are a subset. And in a way, the biological sciences too. So the natural science is a much, much bigger category. In its technical usage, it's much bigger than both biological sciences and physical sciences. They become subsets of the natural science. And the creation of the natural science rather, that is what the natural science did. It demystified the universe. What was otherwise considered a mystery was demystified, and it also created certain knowledge. Certain means reliable, verifiable, observable knowledge about nature. That's what it did. My sugar levels are plummeting, I think. Tremors have started, and I'm also getting spaced out. So I'll have to stop here today.
Yes, sir, please.
Yeah,
Please.
Padma is pretty happy. Go.
No, no, sir. In fact, I had few questions, but it's okay. Now it's
No,
time.
tell me. I'll,
No, no, sir. It's okay. We can
no.
continue.
No, ask a question. Ask the questions. When it
Are you sure,
becomes,
sir? Because you're
yes, when
tired.
if I don't, if I can't, then I will tell you that I can't anymore. Tell me.
Okay, I'll ask it quickly. So I wanted to know in which areas can this method be applied, not only like to physics. Uh, who are the thinkers who use this method in philosophy or political philosophy?
In political philosophy, Machiavelli used it. Okay, and
Hobbes too, right, sir?
Hobbes also used it. The experimental method that they used is this. Machiavelli was the first to use it. Next, it was Hobbes. Then it was Locke. Now, the important thing is that when this method was used, they did not show the resolution part. They did not show the resolution part. They only showed the composition part. Okay, if you look at the composing of a song, okay, people write various different kinds of notes. They play them, then they strike one off. Can you do me a small favor? Can you get me some chocolate? So they basically um, will strike that off and say, no, this doesn't sound too good, even if it is compatible. Okay, even if those notes are compatible, then they probably may say, let's try this other note instead of this. Instead of a minor, let me try a diminishing minor. So that all that dirty work, I call it dirty not because it is filthy, all that, the crisscross and okay, this and that, let's strike this out, that we don't get to see, do we? What we get to see is the end product. What we get to hear is the end product. Thanks. Sorry. Making sure that I can answer your questions properly.
Sir, please, we'll continue tomorrow now.
No. This is a good
Yes,
question at a
sir.
good time. This is a good question at a good time. So these people use this method to present their ideas. They presented their ideas minus the experimentation behind. That is why some of the things that Machiavelli does and some of the things that Hobbes does are unclear to us. Okay? Hobbes says individuals sprouted out of the ground like mushrooms. And this has stumped George Sabine. And he says if they sprouted out of the ground like mushrooms, then how did they manage to form a social contract? Hobbes talks about a state of nature, which he says where life is short, nasty, and brutish, solitary. Sorry, I missed out that word. So, how did these people who are fighting with each other, war of all against all, as he called it, suddenly how did they become rational and decide to enter into a social contract? That is because Hobbes is hiding his disassembly part. He's hiding the disassembly part. Okay. He's not showing the political side first.
Right,
Simple.
get it, sir. So he only showed the composition, keeps a social contract, the end.
Yes. Yes.
Right.
That is what he gives us. That is for the neatness of presentation. Right? When you write something, you don't want all your experiments to go through to the reader, right? You want to present it neatly. Songs are recorded many times. There are many different recordings. Then people choose which recording, played at which tempo, which recording which highlights which instrument, which particular uh, lyric. They choose that. So that's how it works. And there are a number of examples, even in physical sciences or natural sciences. What did Newton do? Newton did exactly this. It's not like Newton sat back and lo and behold, the three laws came to him. No, there's a great deal of investigation into nature before he came out with those three laws. We see only the three laws. We don't see the investigation behind it. Other scientists also did the same thing. So, Rachna, you wanted to ask something?
No, sir.
Uh, are you still there, Mr. Prashant Garu?
Yes, sir.
Hmm. Have you heard the songs I asked you to hear? All of them? Or will you just
Only,
say only broken bones?
no, sir. Today I read Is This the Life?
Hmm.
We really want.
You heard the lyrics?
Yes, sir.
You understood it?
Hmm, not completely, sir.
Hmm. What did you understand
But
from
I understood one thing, sir. I mean, I understood one thing, that is, it is like depressing song, sir.
Mm-hmm. It is like?
I mean, depression song, not like a song which gives us pleasure.
Don't call them depression. Did you see the video?
Sir, there is no video of Pink for us. I mean, there are some other edited videos.
No. There is a video, official video of Is This the Life We Really Want? Search for that
No, sir, I didn't
and see the
check.
visuals. See the visuals, and it
Yes.
also will show the lyrics as subtitles. Then you'll get a better picture. Yeah, it's not a happy song, you're right. That is why the question, is this the life we really want? Because one day I'm going to do something about that. Incidentally, how many of you are open to the idea of having guest lectures during this period? I'll get very good scholars to come and speak to you. Come meeting on Zoom. Are you open
Okay,
to
sir.
that idea?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
We want, sir.
But I need slightly bigger numbers. I need at least 20 people. Otherwise, it'll look really bad.
True,
Okay.
sir.
We will inform, sir. Our level best.
Hmm?
That guest lecture used to say our subject or other else anything.
Related to. Why subject? Subject can be taught by me, no?
Yes, that's why I'm asking.
Something related to, but not your syllabus.
Okay.
We will try, sir, to pull up, but we are not sure because people told they will turn up here also, but they are not. So cannot really promise the number, right?
My only fear is that if I call them and ask them to speak, then the problem will be that if they are far too few, then they might not feel very good about it. So please discuss this. Even the BAs, Amulya, Prashant, Rakesh, get some more people. And Anirudh, are you there? Anirudh, Akshay.
Yes, sir.
Do you think we should have guest lectures?
Yes, sir.
For one day, we'll have somebody, some people more. Tell them they don't have to come every day. For one day, I'll think of an interesting
Okay, sir.
topic and do it. I'll think of an interesting
Okay, sir.
topic and do it. Maybe you do it in the morning.
Yes, sir.
Okay, sir.
Evening, even for the guest lecturers, it might not be a convenient time. So before the college is open, I'd like to do a guest lecture. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So please let me
Okay,
know.
sir.
One day, please let me know. I'll get somebody to speak about political geography and that kind of stuff. These days, political geography is a new thing, by the way. Political geography and public policy in conjunction. And I know somebody who's an excellent speaker, apart from being very knowledgeable. There are some people who are very knowledgeable, but not very great speakers. But this chap, this friend of mine, is an amazing fellow. He speaks very well and he's very, very knowledgeable in an upcoming area. So I can try and do that. So let me know if you can mobilize some more people, then it'll be nice.
Yes, sir. Surely.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you
so
very
much.
Thank you,
much.
sir.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Sir,
Yes, ma'am.
today's recording of the morning class,
It's
you
there.
haven't shared.
I have put it.
Okay, sir.
I have put it.
Okay. Thank you,
Yeah.
sir.
Right.
Thank you, sir.
Righto.